Chilly here with Sirius Talisman, and this is Venus Day, Venus Hour, Venus 25 degrees, Virgo, applying to oppose Saturn and Neptune, midheaven with Mercury in Scorpio, and the ascendant is ruled by Saturn. So, Moon is separating from the bisextile, and I began to talk about the fact that we are practically separating from a century-old harmony that is only building up to dissolve between the mafia, the secret societies, and the bankers, the economy, and the politics. Now, this harmony, century-old harmony, is so much so that even I have colleagues that would say nuclear bomb is Neptune because of the radiation, and other people would say nuclear bomb is Pluto because it's a big bomb that is a megalithic power of explosion. And in my previous episode, okay, and in my episode, I have explained how the meeting of these two giants, okay, how the meeting of these two giants is basically, and there are people that even right now begin to understand that they're not on the power position side of that equation, and they're not playing to be and stay in power. Because power that abuses its power dissolves. This is the Saturn Neptune. And so I began to talk about what happens in that separation and what happens when a mafia becomes a government but doesn't act like one because they think they can run the world like a mafia organization. And what is happening? First of all, we have to consider the fact that we have been in a century-long time where that union of forces was building up to dissolve. And building up to dissolve is basically when power, Pluto, is abused, it dissolves. And so, and this is basically the state of the art towards the Saturn Neptune that prepares us to the separation of the century-old sextile between Pluto and Neptune. And this is exactly, first of all, there has been, ever since Pluto moved to Capricorn, a lot of people talked about, well, those in power know that they are, yes, those in power know that they are basically losing their power. And this is true. Because when power becomes globalized and abuses power globally, then first there is this big expansion, there's a big bubble, and Neptune will get people to develop the megalithic bubble and then bubble pop. This is why the people that were busy being mafia, they're going to have to grant human rights. Think about the foundation of United States. They skipped debt. They didn't want to pay King George. And so they made a constitution that lets people hold army against the governments. Now they were thinking Britain is the government. That this is the origin of the Second Amendment. Freedom of speech. Okay. Now all of the constitution has been violated in the United States. It's a third world country in praxis. But at first they were founded, and they were the big bosses, but they wanted freedom from the bigger bosses. So they said, let's make a constitution. And then what? Oh my God, women are also people. Oh, okay, we're gonna have to deal with that. Black people are also people. Okay, that's a different color palette, but okay. And the reasoning from which one could legally take the force and the human rights out of people, after having coming up with this human rights bill, was beginning to wither. And then all of their tricks, all of the tricks, which is what's happening right now, all of the tricks under which people will send people to target people, and all of the tricks would be the same tricks. All of the tricks in the book work on fear tactics when they don't offer nothing. To the bone marrow, they offer only ailment, treason. You don't get to have a relationship because you cannot trust anyone. You don't get to have intimacy because people has to go through such threshold of pain and violence that they don't even get to have an orgasm or an erection. You don't get to cash in on the wealth because then they change the currency. What money? And don't expect to not be betrayed because you'll be sent to prison over somebody else, no matter how much oil you have, algorithms. So, now in the beginning, and that's what I talked about in the last episode, people watch Don Corleone, okay, all the aesthetics, all the this, all the that, the family and the family and the family. And that child was sacrificed to this Moloch, and that child was sacrificed to that, and that she's a whore. She was kidnapped and put on drugs on purpose. And the guy cannot have a sex with his wife because it's a Madonna whore symptom. They can't enter. And so what happens? The woman, when she wants a good, says, she cheats, she whore. No, she doesn't cheat. She's looking for sex that is actually sexing. And so do you, the husband, right? No, they can't do it with the whore. They do it with the neighbors. This is how Esther Perel came up with erotic intelligence, because that's what it was in Europe. But what if the torturers that they train the kids to do crime, because child is under, you cannot litigate a child, you know, then the children do the crimes. That child doesn't even get to have an orgasm, a sex life, when they grow older. If they grow. They said, this is the mafia. This is Don Corleone. This is the family. You know, in Israel, we have tribes, Bedouin tribes. Everybody that could move to the city. Why? They cannot stand the Hamula wars. In Gaza, yesterday, okay, IDF a little bit was silent because they want to kidnap people, because without the kidnap people, they go back. They won't have to fear the Palestinians. The Israelis will kill them. And so, okay, because no real estate, no oil, no gas, no nothing. What is We won the war. The shekel strong. You buy 20 shekel, 1 challah, 3 oranges, and and a small tiny bag of baking soda to clean up the mess afterward. What mess? There's no food. The sink doesn't even get dirty. High-tech nation. Where is Lital? Lital, TikToker, 14 years old. Youth in risk. Youth in risk doesn't speak with her mother just 5 minutes before she disappears out of thin air. High-tech nation. There are more cameras than people in Israel. Now, but Israel left a tiny bit of Palestine left alone. What happens? Hamula war. Family this and Hamas are fighting Hamula war over Gaza port. No, bevakasha. Of course. This family, not crime family, family. Hamula wars is culture. This is why the Bedouins, some of them even served in the army. They liked Israel so much because they couldn't stand the Hamula wars. But in the kibbutz, children tortured. You say, oh, it's probably a minority. No, 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 no. The elite. Now, all of these things come out right now, and this is because basically we are having the utmost harmony, okay? Saturn is going to meet Neptune on a 0 degree and then on 1 degree in a bisextile with Pluto and Neptune. And Uranus. Now, yeah. It's the mirror image of Gladio operation. So it looks like, oh, we have another Cold War Gladio. No, 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 no. Because this time, Neptune is slowly separating from a century-old sextile with one another, Pluto and Neptune. and so the core of this separation is that we're going to have the secret societies, the intelligence, the mafia, separating from the politics, the power positions. Now, where does banking go? Where does nuclear go? We're going to know. Because when we have the friction, then we begin to individuate from this century-old sextile. Now, this sextile had a lot of good things because, for example, a person that have, let's say, chronic pain, they can get a prescription to have weed. Now, to be very honest, the weed, and I know from post-traumatic people, I don't like smokes, but people that need that for like pain and so on, then they would get to go to the Herzl. The Herzl is the drug dealer. Because the weed from the Herzl is better than the one if they go to the pharmacy. So so they say it's when they began to write prescriptions, then people got pissed because they were happy buying with the Herzl. Now that what is prescribed for them, they don't like it. They need to go to the Herzl, and they were trying to eliminate. So basically, they were trying to compete the mafia on the quality, and they failed. And basically, the corporate mafia was not providing as much as the rogue mafia. Now, if it's the same mafia, it wants to preserve itself, so it will force people to go to the mafia. Now, everything is okay, but when the mafia, they want to have governance, then they have to work like to give human rights. Otherwise, it's problem because people said what? They're gonna be, and they're gonna start asking the mafia to do the things that they would ask the government to do. Nobody wants to live in fear. The world looks so beautiful. And this is where things begin. People are going to ask, wait, where's the money? Where's the money gone? Where are human rights? You live in a good village, you live in a bad village, you live in a good neighborhood, bad neighborhood. Arad city was I was living, it was one of the best neighborhoods in Arad. Not a posh neighborhood. It had mansions and so on, and the mansions were divided into units where we lived. So people start saying, what is this? Woman not safe. She's a how, she's a this, she's a nobody gives a flying fuck about these excuses. Where's the safety for women? And not married, yes married. How will a woman marry if the guy is trying to rape women to marry? Rape women in the marriage? You know what they did in Arad? They tried to do this thing where women sit at the back of the bus and men sit in the front. 2 years after, almost only women drivers. I don't know now. But as another thing that's coming globally, because this mafia is a global thing. And shout out to Bjorn, who talks about how will they do the confiscation of property. And he says very easy. They will send you a letter. You need to have ecosystemic house, for it's going to cost you very likely. And that cost, if it's investment property, you have to raise the rent. Now people would, what money? Because when you go to work, they want you to cooperate with Epstein. That's a treason code. Nobody comes. And then the work is also real estate, so they have to raise the rent. Okay? And they can't pay the employees at a set of work. And then the property owner, let's say they live in this house, okay? They have to fix the house. Fix the house. Then they have to maintain and pay more for the maintenance of the supposedly ecosystemic house. Now that house is literally confiscated. What is property tax? It's a way to confiscate private property. Now, because as humanity we've normalized, in Israel, a couple of a year or two ago, there was a lady, older lady, writing in a group, and she says, "I'm homeless. I need help. I need this. I need that." And then people found out she rents an apartment. People were like, "What is she talking about?" And then the older people had to correct them. They said, "No, she's not charlatan. She's not fooling you. She's older lady, and being homeless in Israel usually meant not having one owned home." We have normalized private property confiscation so much that when Palestinians were saying, "I miss the olive trees, I miss the this, I miss the that," the person in Tel Aviv lives in an apartment that the bathroom is next to they have to shower above the bathroom. The good thing is that if they are doing number two now, they can have they can wash their heads and so on. And I have to pay for the water, pay for the this, pay for the that. Okay, what olive oil? What olive oil? We know what olive. Oh, it grows on trees. Olive oil grows on trees. Okay, they forgot. How do people that never had land can relate to the struggle of people that miss their land? Can. And so in less than a century, we've normalized homelessness so much that Even and I have to admit, this is, why speak about other people? When the Americans, when the Americans were no longer able to live in their RVs, okay? But to talk about homelessness in America, a lot of people lived in RVs. Now, as a person that doesn't have a driving license, I look at this and I say, they said they have a home, they have a home. And I'm half Dutch. In Netherlands, for example, my parents met each other. They went to stay by a lady, and this lady, before she had public house, she was living in a caravan. So it's like they live in a home, they have a home. Until it became illegal to live in an RV. Because when I was in between houses, that was sleeping in some, entering some school through a door that was half open, sleeping there and hoping no people will come with a degree and a half, with a practical certification. Why? Because I tried to work. Because I tried to not be dependent on something that would put down the person. And because I don't go with these Epstein goals. But the fact is that we have, and so have I, because in that period, that was the COVID, I realized a lot of my problems have been that my feet were not stepping barefoot on the soil, so the nervous system wasn't balancing. I was not growing a garden, which means that again the nervous system wasn't balancing. The person is angry. What do? They dig up the soil. Now the soil is transformed. There's an air in the soil. The person has made their fitness. They go back home. They're civil. They're nice. They're lovely. They're this. They're that. Nobody knows how they treated the composter a couple of hours back. And so, okay. That's the thing. Now, I had to understand, to ask for myself for more, not less. And this is what we as humanity, we need to do our own shadow work. What have we normalized? Because when there is change, okay, and the change we say it doesn't look like it's in our favor. Now, for a lot of people, to run a mansion, to clean up the property, to keep the soil, whether it's rewilding or whatnot, they need to maintain that. So for a lot of people, when they move to rent, they're like, oh, somebody else takes care of that. Okay, and that that's okay. That has pros and cons. But we also have to think, what have we normalized that got us where we are? And the only way to, a lot of people are worried about Agenda 2030 and so on and so forth. The only way is not to say, oh, we want to keep the situation as it is. No, because the situation is not as it is. Neptune is separating from Pluto. The bisextile is now forming as a new situation that later is separating. Civil wars are happening. Aries in the 50s is going to ingress into Taurus. Okay? So the point is not to say, oh, we want it as it was. Not going to be as it was. It's not the same skies. But what is the opportunities of the new situation? And what have we normalized so much so that we've sacrificed at Neptune for the peace that we had with Pluto? For example, perhaps we've normalized that, yes, we have love in their marriage, and she sleeps with the neighbor, he sleeps with the fitness coach, and everybody is fine with the fitness coach is gay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it's normal. So why are you married to? Back then, no, it wasn't normal for a man to marry. What would the neighbors say? That's the same neighbors that sleep with each other. But out suddenly she's a whore. He is like, this kid with men. Thank you. And why? Because we normalize not having gays to be able to be in relationship, okay, publicly, not having people able to say for what are the intimacy needs and meet them adaptively. And we've normalized not having single people because, oh my God, they're not married. Don't they need this? Don't they need that? Well, something to do with will and consent. Something to do with what the society is offering is taking the glow and the shine from the individual. So we've normalized something, and then when they start to do human trafficking, then ladies that are practically trafficked, they say, okay, they will hire their own security person, and blah 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 blah, and then when they feel a bit comfortable, they say that they have relations with society, that society wants to rape them and have them faking an orgasm, rape their souls and have them faking an orgasm, and they're not willing to orgasm with client. This is an actual sex worker that actually told that, okay, and she felt a bit comfortable after she defended, I'm a sex worker, I'm a this, my sexual confidence, my sexual this, my sexual that, and it gets a little bit comfortable and the junk, the junk comes out, okay? And so it was about that time where all the tried to discuss whether to delegalize sex work, delegalize being clients of sex work, or so on and so forth, all together with the Me Too. And I'm like, well, but it would get yeasty. Like, how, if they're not like. Now think about it. I'm half Dutch. When my parents were first dating, how did my father try to tell my mom he's interested? Yes, he took her to see what is Amsterdam and so on. It was red light district. And it was not about, they were married for 14 years. It was not about trying to just this or that. No, he took care of her and so on and so forth. But that's everybody used to, But in COVID, for example, they talked about the less red lights in the red light. And that's how imbued it is into the culture, that people don't even ask themselves, because when they get to the nitty-gritties, something is missing. What orgasm? Orgasm! The orgasm is missing. And no, replaced. How does this call it? Misplaced arousal, which basically means that something that this person experienced during rape, so that they would diminish the pain a bit. That is not orgasm. Now, Pluto is taboo, Neptune is eroticism. Now, how much of the economy of countries is based on basically rape? People talked about sex positive education. Facebook after Facebook group, community after community, people began to infiltrate, and then there was the Ista cult, and there was the people that Mark Bayersky had a good definition for that. They said there's all these men wearing white robes and having sex with everyone and calling it Tantra. Now, they were not having sex with everyone. They were basically doing something that's called incubus or succubus, at the very best case. And they were also raping people under the guise of healing. So this is also Saturn, Pluto, Neptune is basically power abuse under the guise of medicine. And so what now? The older generation that were so used to that was like that note and 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 that note. Of course, because the entire world was built on foundations of slavery, rape, and those foundations are caving underneath the structure. And ritual abuse, of course. And this is practically what we see. Because the people are going to start asking questions, but also the parts of humanity that deteriorated, kind of like the elite. Okay, if they live on rape, that means that when they're raping people, what it means? It means that they constantly have to rape, that the threshold for having an orgasm is on dopamine, so they begin to lose ability to have orgasm, and they become addicted to violence, and then they begin to behave like animals. So when people see these people, let's say, now it's colonialism, so let's say people want to trade, and then people start to rape with the man or this or that. It doesn't care that they're addicted to sex, so it doesn't care it's a man, and they say kill all of them. They're like animals. Now, now those people learn from those people and so on and so forth. Then everybody kills everybody. Colonialism, for example, how was it decolonized? It didn't decolonize. It's just the people died. They began to kill. They began to kill each other, and the people that survived were the people that had at least bit of self-awareness. This Procyon, Jupiter approaching Procyon, and at least bit of self-awareness to see, okay, we've been treated how we treat our women. We've been treated how we treat our children. We've been treated how we treat the neurodivergent people or the disabled people. For example, when there was 7th of October, I had two choices. One, to say, oh my God, this Hamas is terrible, it's animals, it's this, it's that. Or to say, for what I know is the truth, this Hamas couldn't be there without the Israelis, and they were practicing. On whom they were practicing, other than in psychic attack, also myself, on Israeli people. One doesn't invade into a country that is a high-tech nation, more cameras than people, and literally almost conquers a couple of cities, destroys them, destroys the housing, destroys everything, without some sort of cooperation. And only people that are able to rape like that are one people and one people only. The people that have Madonna horror complex. The people that can able to see a person being raped and say, ah, they are a whore. But the man or woman, by the way, they do it to the boys as well. Only such people can do that. Who are those people? The Templars, the Templars, the global mafia. Because if a person sees a person in the street and they say they're junkie, they're this, they're that, then they're just going to be the next study case. And this is how countries get invaded. So what's likely to happen is a combination of many people dying because they operated like the colonizers, which may or may not happen in Palestine. And the people that somehow survive this are going to be forced into understanding that human rights matter. For example, people that had gone through sexual boundary violation, they know that that affected their complete identity. And some of them even don't know, because I had a friend that they did not understand why they're not able to work after they've been basically tortured by a cult. They did so much so that they were 8 years in court case with the university. Yes, it happened in academia. And they had to add the offender name. And they were in court case for sexual harassment. And then a friend of them says, "But don't you remember what happened for the physical thing that happened? Why didn't you mention it?" And the lady did not remember that. Because she was dissociated after that happened. No, thank you. Then she wonders why she cannot file the reports in time when she tries to work for this or that. And you understand, this is an academic person. In high-tech nation Israel. All they use Palestine for is to try to give excuse to rape people and to human trade, and to do that under the guise of and to the Palestinians it's problems, because what did we see immediately after Israel takes a slight bit of a break from Gaza? Okay, it's either they have the colonizers, which are as horrible, or they have Hamula wars. Or they have those that join the Templars and want to see Palestine as 15-minute cities. Now, because people normalized homelessness, normalized living in an RV because one has no choice, because normalized, okay, the women being raped, oh, they're a whore. Normalized children being raped. Normalized people missing. Then, what's a new normal like? At the same time, the megalithic-ness of the events is when people having their properties confiscated, now they wake up to the fact that the middle class is going to be low class, because feudalism was the same feudalism the minute there was a middle class. Because to have a middle class, you need to have a poor class. And I was like, it's killing the middle class. Well, now they're going to find out why the lower class is lower class. And then the feudalists are going to die in a plague, very likely like the Spanish flu. And people eventually will say, well, we want actually more rights than before. And then and only then is when a revolution succeeds. Revolution doesn't succeed when you say, We don't like the bad conditions that are coming on us. Revolution succeeds when it says, okay, we have normalized this, normalized that, normalized that, normalized that. We are correcting ourselves in that, and then the forces that come to bring the situation to worse have to stand corrected, because now the people that allow that, not only that they no longer allow that, they want even more rights than ever before, and to retract from everything that they're normalizing. And this is how you make business. Okay, this is where what also in the eclipses that we had the Ketu and the 2-3 years eclipses, we were purging diplomacy, we were purging people pleasing, we were purging the giving up our sovereignty, and we understand that we don't have sovereignty without sexual sovereignty. Lilith is 22 in Scorpio. Let's take a look at the news. Let's see if I can see just news, if there are still news, because because if you can still find news on Google. Can I find news like news? Why don't I find like news, world news? Deadly attacks in Ukraine. Global reaction to the news of the Gaza peace deal. Momentous opportunity. Gaza stream towards wrecked homes as Israeli forces pull back. Universities from 3 countries to set up in Punjab. Okay, Gaza ceasefire, everybody talking about that. I hope I managed to give you a perspective on the Gaza ceasefire that you wouldn't hear on the NBC, CBC, BBC, and all the people that had to be with Epstein to get that. I even had colleagues, yes, no names, that when it came to discussion of MK Ultra, they say, "Oh, it's good that people don't talk about that." And they had been colleagues as astrology, and they were working in media. And they're great astrologers. They probably were great reporters as well. But when it came to those topics, very likely they knew why they had to shut up, because at the very least they had to work with people that would go to those parties, and they had to work with them. Reactors share ideas on how to stay global in a new era. There's going to be a lot of Gaza. Nigeria. Oh, now we actually have world news. It's the UN, so I don't know how much we can trust that, but El Fasher displacement, Afghanistan rights violation, Nigeria vaccination, child vaccinations. Now we understand when we hear Nigeria child vaccinations, we understand it's like the Ethiopians that were castrated in Israel. More people being forced to flee their homes as fighting continue in El Fasher, Sudan. Now that's another place in the world that has been fighting ever since I remember my older self. North and South Sudan have been fighting. In warning to Afghanistan, Khawaja Asif has a terror message for Pakistan. Okay, so this Afghanistan, Pakistan area is Like the Israeli-Palestine is coming down as Pakistan. At least they take turns. Um, Mental health fundamental to our overall well-being, Prime Minister Modi. We know what that means, right? That's MK Ultra. You see, you won't find that in the news broadcast. JP Morgan Chase CEO issues an urgent warning to the stock market. Is a stock rush coming? Of course, a stock market. Um, Now, here's the thing: when the economy collapses, people begin to live to themselves because they understand you know, if everybody has less than enough, then a person that finds a pack of cookies, if they share the cookies, it's not a problem. But some people will be afraid to share the cookie because they would get murdered just over the thought that they have some more cookies at home. Now it's the age of air. We cannot hide from. Only when we look for missing people, it's like, I don't know. Nvidia, Palantir, Starlink, satellites, spywares, global espionage. Where are they? Well, we don't know. Maybe we can put them on a milk carton. More than 450 Russian drones. Okay? And then every kid, they give them a couple of pesos. They say, you warn this person, you warn this, you warn that. They don't tell that kid that that kid is going to be. And they had better, if they tell a person to target an individual, they better partner up with that individual, because otherwise that individual might not be mafiosi, and that's why they target them. But if they stay for the mafiosi, they look like they get this money, they get that money, they get that money, then they are body flying in the river. Now, the person that's targeted, they're not the mafiosi. So this person would actually see, okay, and that's the thing, no matter how, whether it's Aspen or Amsterdam's Harlem or whatever, or a favela somewhere, okay, where we don't have the culture that is honoring the individual, then we have nothing. No matter the currency, no matter the politics, no matter the medicine, because the medicine can be top notch, but if a person can't count on going to a doctor and actually receiving the correct treatment for themselves, not because of the science problem, and I know because I tended to the science. And this is where people are going to ask questions now. As the Pluto and Neptune slowly separate from their century-long harmony, answers are going to suddenly come to the surface, because there's going to be a crisis of ideation of power and devaluation. And why I talk about others, for me, before my Pluto square, I was thinking, okay, what will help me feel safe? Maybe I need more money. Maybe I need to live in a better place. Maybe I need to work with this in a job that pays more money. Maybe I don't know. I need to study. At the end of the day, nothing beats culture, because if the culture around me doesn't allow a woman to be safe and free, it doesn't matter how money runs. It's either the plague, colonialism, terror, democide, genocide, or Hamula wars, which is another form of life. And as the harmony forms and towards the individuation process of Neptune and Pluto, there's going to be a global oscillation, particularly with Pluto, with ideation of power and devaluation of power, because Neptune is ideation and devaluation, surrendering power, standing in our power, and basically those are going to create situations that um, all of us will begin to become aware more of. Wait a second, so that is probably governed by Neptune, and that's probably governed by Pluto, because suddenly the things that went hand in hand have a friction. Okay, friction is usually a battle over some resources, and say, okay, um, and at the same time, that nothing beats culture. Culture cannot sustain without resources. Okay, if people don't have a house and they live in the street and they are so all in all safe and people share their food, and somebody lives in a mansion, okay, and I saw this right around the neighborhood. People driving Hondas, then one day there's a Lamborghini. I'm like, beautiful Lamborghini, makes noise like a motorcycle, but it looks like something that has been like a parasitic. Now here's the thing: if suddenly all the cars were this Lamborghini, this Corvette, this South, this that, and each and every one of us would have more wealth, more this, more that, not on the account of other areas in the world, then we would say, oh, we're developing, so we have wealth. It makes sense. And so we would look at that Lamborghini and we would say, well, it makes sense. The person been providing this value, the person been providing that value. Each person provides value and they cut the dividends. That makes sense. When you see all the people, okay, suddenly more people in the street, suddenly working ladies, suddenly this, suddenly that, then this Lamborghini pops up. You say, oh, they are having the occult that is sucking the life energy. And you think about how disrespectful it is. Let's say you are a man, okay? Working ladies, and you're driving this, I don't know what. They don't even have money. They don't even have homes. They don't even have. How disrespectful it is as a man to one's own self. How it looks. It looks like a person is, yes, doesn't know how to respect. This person is not leader. This person is person that doesn't know how to respect people. This person that doesn't provide for the people. Now, it's no problem. Person, let's say they got money by, I don't know, stealing silver. You see, the Dutchies, they got money by stealing silver in Spain. So, the Spanish Empire. But when the Spain, the bank held all the money in Spain, all the silver and the gold, not the money, the silver and the gold, there was inflation because the silver and the gold wasn't in the hand of the people. So a lot of silver and gold, it means that their value is lower and there's inflation. The money can buy less. But the people need to hold the metals now. When the Dutchies stole the silver from Spain, they were basically reducing inflation. That at least makes sense. And it's mafia, it's a pack of thieves. It's okay. But the question is, okay, what kind of a person doesn't provide for the people and they stand there with this Lamborghini? And it's not, again, it's not about the Lamborghini. It's fantastic to have Lamborghini. But we know that this is because they used energy of living people to take the energy, and then the people, they don't even have homes, they don't even have their own, a woman, working lady, doesn't even have a jewel, doesn't even have nothing, and you know that it's her sex energy, her life energy was taken from her because she could manifest the house for herself, she could manifest the thing and have her own sensuality be respected. Because if you think about an art, when you watch a beautiful singer or so on and so, there is eroticism, but this is something that is honored, that is respected. But no, people want to own this and to own that and to own that, and then what they want to own becomes like lifeless, and they have this Lamborghini, you know. I'm sorry, but you cannot have a conversation with a Lamborghini. You cannot have uh, um, you cannot have intimacy that respects you with a Lamborghini. But you have to also respect for the other person. When a woman abused, she becomes violent because she doesn't see anymore. If a person abuses you, how will you see them as respectable? As people say, children, they don't respect the parents. How can girl respect the parent when father 40 years old married girl 12 years old? To what is the father bringing the girl up to the world for? And she cannot say what the mother, because the mother didn't even have a say in that. But Pluto in Aquarius is also the time of the Robin Hoods. And this is different people. This is a person where you say, what you got? I got this, I got that, I got that. Think about when Richard Feynman, he was a scientist, yes, but he had a couple of patents. Now, he didn't know he had patents. He had ideas, and his boss at the academia told him, you see, all these ideas that you have, give them to me. We need to register them. It's called patents. And he said, what do you mean patents? You see, the same thing that drives, uh, um, yes, an engine or a gas engine, the same thing, you tweak it a little bit, it's nuclear energy. You tweak it a little bit, it's rejuvenating energy. You tweak it a little bit, you can have a plane running on that. You can tweak it a little bit, you have a bomb. And then the person says, wait, I'm writing. Then Feynman gets a call. And watch Patents by Richard Feynman. He gets a call and it says, yeah, we want to develop this aircraft, this, that. You say, okay, I'm a physicist, what do you want from me? Yeah, but the patent is on your name. They needed the patent. So he had to sell the patent to the government for $1. Now it's Feynman. He wanted his dollar. And I said, well, I don't have $1 to give you. It was a symbolic thing to write the patent. And then he insisted on the dollar. Now it was the financial crisis, aftermath of the financial crisis. He went with that dollar and he bought some cookies with $1. Okay, some cookies, something, I don't know, for the drink, I don't know, for bread and butter. Comes to the lab and it says, people, look, I got something because I got $1 for my patent. And now everybody wanted their dollar. Okay, now Feynman was a bit like me in that. But these are different people because sometimes, let's say, Let's say you steal silver from Spain. You come to your people and say, please, people, when I heard about the fact that people need to hold silver and this, I'm like, I can't wait for my next paycheck because I have to have silver for me and for everybody around. I don't know any people. So I don't have money. I only have the little bit